about yourself, sir?
Myself. Well, I grew up in Denver, Colorado,
Mm-hmm.
and one week after high school, I was on a train headed for San Diego
Mm-hmm.
and boot camp. So that started my military, what became a career. I didn't plan on it that way, but actually, the career is kind of disjointed because 12 years in the Navy and retired from the Air Force. Hobby, I was a twidget.
Yeah.
Twidget, you know what a twidget is?
No,
Okay.
it's the first time I've heard it.
Aviation electronics, twidget, AT.
Oh, okay.
So it was, I don't know what they call, say, electricians or mechanics but I was a twidget.
So what do you do in the Air Force?
In the Air Force? Oh, completely different. See, I flew in the Navy.
Oh.
In fact, what's interesting is 12 years in the Navy, you think, well, that ought to involve some shipboard life. The only ship I was ever on was a seaplane tender.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just to go below to have lunch. And then we went back up, they craned us back off our patrol bomber, and we took off, and that was it. That's my entire sea story.
What about the land story?
The land? Well, our seaplanes couldn't land on land.
Mm-hmm.
We had to land on the water.
Okay.
And then if we were in the right place, they had beaching gear. They could attach those to the plane and then bring it back up on the land. Kind of an interesting time in the world at that time because of the drawdown of the Korean War.
Oh.
And there were, we had a lot of threats. And when I was in boot camp, I remember hearing about the Chinese are doing this, the Russians are doing that, and that we might be back at something comparable to World War II again. So I had no idea of what I was going to do and where I was going to go, but I was assigned to the patrol squadron in Iwakuni, Japan, and flying patrols out of there, anti-sub warfare, and also search missions, going out. You'd fly a track and flying out over
It's like scouting
areas
there.
of China and Russia and the China Seas, and there's always that potential of getting shot at. Fortunately, I never got shot at. Fortunately,
You're here with us.
yeah, I made it back. Yeah.
And I'm listening to your story right now.
Yeah, but I love to travel. I've traveled all over the world. I've been to over 100 countries, and
That's really cool. Yeah.
and it started out really when I was, even before I got out of high school. Just always had an interest, whether it was traveling around the state or traveling around the country, or getting to go to Canada or Mexico, and I just continued that love. Training I got, I thought, well, gee, now that I'm a twidget, I want to get
Okay.
I want to get out and go to college, and I want to become an electrical engineer. And I guess it was maybe the first year in college, and I thought, well, I'm more interested in people than I am in watching electrons fly around. So I switched majors and got into a completely different thing in political science, pre-law, and philosophy. So, but
it says over here you were in Guantanamo Bay.
yeah, I got I was going to college, and they had the Berlin crisis, and nobody talks about Berlin crisis. They'll talk about World War II and Korea and Vietnam, and they'll skip right over the Berlin crisis, and I don't know why, because people like myself, I was a year of my life, I was suddenly
Mm-hmm.
President Kennedy says he wanted me, and there were no exceptions. By then, I was a young married guy, had a new baby. I was working in a defense industry with a Martin company at that time, and so I thought, they won't take me. I was in a highly classified deal and working on the Titan I, Titan II missiles, and with this young family and the baby, they won't take me.
But they did.
Kennedy said no exceptions, and there were no exceptions, so I was taken away for a year.
For the Berlin crisis.
For the Berlin crisis, and so we went to train for it, went up to Brunswick, Maine, in the wintertime. In fact, it was my aircrew that first time ever they sank the USS Nautilus submarine. It was brand new, and it was so fast. We'd sat down like you detect it either from radar or from other electronic means that you knew there was a sub down there, and so you'd plant these sonobuoys. You drop them in the water, and they would listen, and then they would send signals back, so you could know whether the sub was closer to this one or that one or that one. You'd have an entire pattern, but the Nautilus as a submarine compared to everything else, the old fleet subs, diesel, nuclear, it was so fast it'd be out of the pattern by the time you got the pattern light. So we were able to get the Nautilus, first time ever that the Nautilus was, it wasn't, we didn't really sink it, but we dropped PDC, practice depth charges.
Yeah.
And so we got credited with killing, or in fact, my plane commander was awarded upside down dolphins.
What is that for?
The dolphin is what a submariner
Oh, yes.
wears on their uniform.
It is very interesting. I mean, there are some things that you were telling me
Yeah.
right now that I only seen in the movies.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to our young
people?
military?
Obviously, the military is to protect and defend, and to keep us safe and to respond against any attempts to make us unsafe. And I'm not sure how young people today look at that as a mission, as a responsibility, and as something that saying they really want to do. Some of them like, oh, I want to travel, or I want to get the work experience and get training, or I just don't know what else to do, and so I'll do the military. That's not the good reason. The good reason is the protect and defend. The other things, hopefully those will come also. But it's like that time getting recalled in the Berlin crisis. It happened within less than a month. I had to leave home, family, children, job, and suddenly my income went way down, and then had a lot of other responsibilities that I hadn't planned on. So that's the reality.
Always be prepared.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir.
Well, thank you.